He took in 10 homeless widows for the winter. Now none of them want to leave. The snow came early that year, swallowing the town of Clearwater in white silence. The streets emptied, shops closed early, and the cold grew sharper with every passing night. On the edge of town, where the road curved into the forest, stood an old sprawling lodge, once a retreat for summer tourists, now just a hollow shell of memories. It belonged to Ethan Marlowe, a quiet man of 48 who preferred the company of his books and the creak of the wood stove to the noise of people. He had inherited the lodge from his late father, but after the fire that took his wife and daughter 10 winters ago, Ethan stopped caring for much of anything. The lodge stood cold and lonely, just like him. That changed on the first night of December. Ethan was returning from town with supplies when he saw a group of women huddled beneath the old train bridge. 10 of them, wrapped in threadbare coats, their breath fogging the icy air. A cardboard sign leaned against a duffel bag. Nowhere to go. Anything helps. He slowed his truck. Logic told him to drive on, to avoid the complications of strangers, but something inside him, something long dormant, stirred. He rolled down the window. "You can't stay out here," he said, voice rough with disuse. "You'll freeze before morning." A tall woman with silver hair and gentle eyes stepped forward. "We've been turned away everywhere else," she said softly. "We'll move on come sunrise." Ethan hesitated, his fingers tapping the steering wheel. "No. You'll come with me," he said finally. "I've got rooms at my lodge. It's warm." The women exchanged wary looks, disbelief mixed with hope. Within minutes, he was driving them all toward the forest, the back of his truck filled with silence and gratitude. The lodge had been lifeless for years, but that night it came alive again. Ethan lit every fireplace, brought out blankets, and showed each woman to a room. Their names trickled in like the warmth from the hearth. Margaret, the silver-haired one. Clara, who hummed hymns under her breath. Rose, a former teacher. June, who had the gentlest hands. Hazel, the youngest and sharpest-tongued. And the rest, each carrying stories written in loss and survival. For the first time in years, Ethan cooked a full meal, stew, bread, and hot cider. The widows ate in silence at first, unsure of their place, until Hazel cracked a joke about his dusty curtains. Laughter followed, small, fragile, but real. Ethan found himself smiling without meaning to. Days turned to weeks. Snow piled against the windows, the forest disappeared beneath it, and the lodge became a world of its own. The women began cleaning, repairing, and decorating without being asked. Margaret took charge of the kitchen, transforming simple ingredients into comfort food that filled the halls with scent and warmth. Clara played the old piano every evening, her music soft and sad at first, then bright and hopeful. Rose taught Hazel to read again. She'd lost the habit after years on the streets. June planted herbs in pots by the window, saying the green made her feel alive again. Ethan watched it all quietly. The laughter that had once died in his home now danced again through the corridors. But it wasn't all ease. Some nights ghosts stirred, not just his but theirs. He found Margaret weeping in the laundry room one night, clutching a faded photo of her husband. Hazel lashed out at the smallest things, afraid of being sent away. The others carried invisible bruises. Hunger, loneliness, grief. So Ethan listened. He fixed things, a broken chair, a loose shutter, a hurting heart. In return they fixed him. By February, the snow had begun to melt, and with it came the question Ethan had avoided. What happens when winter ends? He mentioned it one morning as they shared breakfast. "When the thaw comes," he said carefully, "I'll help you find somewhere to go. Somewhere permanent." The silence that followed was heavier than any blizzard. Hazel set her mug down hard. "We don't want somewhere else," she said. "We've got a home right here." Margaret nodded. "You gave us warmth, safety, a life again. Why should we leave?" Ethan tried to argue. The lodge wasn't meant for so many. It was falling apart. He wasn't a caretaker. He was just a lonely man trying to do one decent thing. But the widows wouldn't hear of it. Over the next days, they began repairing the roof, sanding the porch, and repainting the old sign that hung by the road. Marlowe Lodge became the winter haven, written in bright gold letters. When Ethan protested, Margaret only smiled. "You gave us shelter for the winter, Ethan. Now we'll give you life for all the seasons." Spring came early that year. The ice melted into clear streams, and the forest bloomed again. The lodge was no longer quiet. Laughter spilled from the open windows. Music drifted into the trees. Travelers began stopping by. A lost hiker, a family passing through, drawn by the warmth that seemed to radiate from the place. Ethan stood on the porch one evening, watching the sun dip low over the snowmelt. Margaret joined him, a steaming mug in hand. "You know," she said softly, "you saved 10 widows that night." He smiled faintly. "No, you saved me." Inside, Hazel's laughter echoed through the hall. Clara's piano began a new tune, and the lights glowed against the dusk like a beacon. The lodge, once a monument to grief, had become something else entirely. A home built not from stone and timber, but from second chances. And none of them, not one, ever wanted to leave. As spring painted the hills green again, the last of the snow melted from the eaves of the lodge. The widows had transformed the place. Walls freshly painted, the garden alive with herbs and flowers, laughter echoing where silence once lived. What had begun as a temporary refuge had become something sacred, a home stitched together by grief, kindness, and the stubborn will to begin again. Ethan stood on the porch that evening, hands in his pockets, watching the sunset bleed through the pines. He still remembered the first night they arrived. The fear, the shivering, the quiet gratitude in their eyes. Now those same eyes sparkled with life. Hazel was teaching herself carpentry. Clara was writing music again. Margaret had started taking in strays. A kitten here, a lost bird there. The house, once a monument to his loneliness, was full of love. When Margaret joined him, handing him a steaming cup of coffee, he smiled. "You all were supposed to leave when the winter ended," he said quietly. She looked up at him, eyes crinkling with warmth. "Ethan, some winters aren't meant to end. Sometimes they just change form." He chuckled, shaking his head. "So this is my life now. 10 widows running my home." Margaret's voice was soft but sure. "No, Ethan. It's our home now." The words settled into his heart like a final piece falling into place. Inside, the piano began to play, Clara's tune drifting through the open windows, gentle and alive. Ethan took a sip of his coffee and let the music wash over him. For the first time in a decade, he felt the quiet certainty of belonging. The lodge wasn't just a refuge anymore. It was a family,